Good evening, everyone. My name's Boulware, and today I would like to begin my presentation by asking the audience a question. How many of you, by a raise of hands, knows what this is? Don't be shy if you know what it is. Very good. Next question. How many of you, by a raise of hands as well, knows what this is? There we go. A lot of people know what that is. As many of you may or may not know, these two items play a crucial role in African American history and African American hair culture. And don't worry if you don't know what these two items are, you definitely will by the end of this discussion. There are many myths and misconceptions surrounding African American hair, and only a thorough understanding of these kinky follicles can dispel such mistruths. As individuals striving to learn more and more about different peoples and different cultures, it's important for us to understand the key aspects of someone else's culture. And for African Americans, that key aspect is our hair. Now, as someone born with the hair in question, I have spent years of my own time and my own money trying to learn how to care for the afro I was born with. Not only that, but I spent months and weeks studying this topic in a variety of mediums in order to present this to you today. So today, I'm going to be presenting to you the history of African American hair, starting in the distant past to the 1400s, from the 1400s to the 1900s, and then ending in the 1900s to now. So let's begin our trip back in time by diving into the ancient African tribes of the 1400s. Ancient African hair care served as a form of communication and served as a spiritual connection to the spirit realm to these people. To the Mendi, Yoruba, Mandingo, and Wolof people, African American hair served as a form of complex language system, as brought out by Ayanna D. Bird and Lori L. Tharps in their book, Hair Story, Untangling the Roots of African American Hair. Now, to these individuals, the way one styled one's hair signified a bunch of different things. It could determine your marital status, your age, what tribe you're from, your wealth, and a variety of other things. Not only that, but these people also believed that the hair served as a form of spiritual connection, for they felt that the gods communicated to the people through their hair and to their soul. Because of this, the treatment of hair was very important, and only a key few individuals in the tribe were even allowed to touch hair, let alone to style it. These individuals, or hairdressers, spent days, even weeks, washing, combing, and styling the hair. But the treatment of African American hair steadily declined as slavery was introduced. The introduction of slavery changed African American hair care forever, and the years that followed were filled with methods and ways that try to manipulate the afro texture of the hair. The beginning of this descent can be seen in the traditional head shaving of the slave. So normally, when a slave was caught, his head was shaved. This is seen as taking away that slave's African culture and erasing that link that slave had to his ancestry, to his history, to his tribe. And when that slave reached the Americas, it only got worse. The conditions the slaves had didn't allow them to have enough time to rest, to eat, let alone to do their hair. Because of this, many slaves began using sheep carding tools. You know those tools that people use to rake out fleece? Yeah, they began to use that on their hair. And the long and beautiful tresses of Mother Africa soon turned to dry and matted afros. And due to shame and neglect and just hating the way they looked, many slaves began to cover their hair with handkerchiefs or scarves. And European landowners began to view African American hair in distaste. And this warped viewpoint was later adopted by the slaves themselves. Many of them began to feel that in order to be accepted, in order to look pretty, they had to look more European. They had to be lighter skinned. They had to have straighter hair texture. Because of this warped viewpoint, there was a massive influx of products that was directed and targeted specifically for African Americans and their hair, with entrepreneurs like Madam C.J. Walker and George E. Johnson making hot combs and relaxers respectively to feed this demand to look more European. Now a relaxer, this little box I have right next to me, as brought out by Dale Sandee from About.com, is a chemical treatment that is designed to permanently alter the hair's natural texture into a straightened state. Now, in layman's terms, the chemical within this product is extremely alkaline. It's extremely basic. So what it does, it breaks down the proteins in one's hair and leaves it in an altered state. So the protein in my hair that makes it curly, that makes it coily, kinky, fluffy, voluminous, it breaks it down. And what you have left is a straightened hair straighten hair. But the viewpoint of African American hair became progressively more positive as the 1900s continued into the 2000s. Within the 1960s and within the civil rights movement, when an African American was seen wearing an afro or his or her hair in an unaltered state, it was seen as a collective expression, a collective expression of culture, history, and genetics, as brought up by Stacia Brown in her article, My Hair, My Politics. And she also relates how an afro was not just hair, but was also a symbol of their political stance. Many African Americans began to style their hair with afro picks, just like this one, and they would even use it as an accessory to symbolize their political stance. This style was trendy in the 1970s until it was taken over by the jerry curls and perms that defined the 80s. And the 80s also brought about a plethora of African American hairstyles for men as well. One of the most noticeable being the high top fade. You know, the one that Will Smith has in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Theo Cosby on The Cosby Show. That was very popular during the 80s. The 1980s and the 1990s also brought about a massive increase of women wearing hair pieces and extensions. And a lot of people don't understand why. Well, African American women always struggled with not having good hair or not having the hair texture or hair length that they always wanted. So wearing a weave, wearing a wig allowed them to have the texture and the length and the thickness they always desired, but also allowed them to protect their own hair underneath. Acceptance and knowledge about natural African hair care progressively became more viewed throughout the 2000s and to now. Many African American individuals are now wearing their hair naturally, like I am today, than wearing it pressed out or chemically treated. And although there has been some contention and conflicts between women with natural hair and women with relaxed hair, it can generally be stated that the acceptance and knowledge of African American hair has expanded greatly into the millennium. So in conclusion, I hope that you guys today have all gained an accurate understanding of African American hair and the history of it, starting in the distant past to the 1400s, the 1400s to the 1900s, and the 1900s to now. I truly hope that with this new information you guys just learned, you guys are now less likely to believe the various myths and misconceptions you hear about black hair. So next time you see a cool afro or a fly high top, you now know the expansive, elaborative, and beautiful history behind those two styles. And most importantly, you guys now know what these two items are. Thank you.